All right, y'all ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, we're ready.
All right, here we go. Well, welcome guys to another episode of the Mind of a Brother podcast. We're starting off with episode 2 this time. Hope you guys are excited about this episode. And don't forget, our mission as Black men, we are dedicated to the field of mental health while maintaining authenticity, reducing stigma, and making a meaningful impact in the lives of others. Before we get started, we're just going to do a couple of introductions in case y'all forgot who we are. My name is Ricky Carlson, and I'm one of the residents in counseling at Vision, Hope, and Healing, working with our young people, our old people, and all the people in between, marriage counseling and everything. All right, let me hear from you, brothers. What are y'all bringing to the table, and how y'all doing today?
My name is Calvin.
Kelvin, you go first.
My name is Calvin. I do a little bit of everything, but my main mission, my main goal is to make sure Black men are doing okay. So, however that may look, from relationships to individual, from young age to old age, my purpose is to make sure Black men are doing okay.
Amen to that. We need that.
Yeah. My name is Dr. Solomon Akwe, also from Vision, Hope, and Healing Counseling Services. I'm a huge and big advocate for mental health. Mental health struggles are real, so we're here to support one another, just to also raise the awareness that there's nothing wrong for a Black man to go seek for mental health counseling. Is
Hmm.
a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen. How was y'all week? What y'all end up doing this week?
Week's been crazy, bro. Week's been crazy.
Hmm.
Life's been crazy. Work's been crazy, and honestly, just kind of reflecting on it. Just becoming more comfortable in places with around people that don't always look like me in positions that I'm in
Hmm.
um, has been something that I've seen reoccurring pop up in me, not just comfortably maneuvering it, but being proud of who I am in that role. So if that means like we had an award ceremony today at work. Excuse me. Everybody was dressed up, and honestly, I was probably like one of the very few people in there. How I'm dressed right now is how I was dressed today. And so, I ended up getting an award at work today in front of the entire campus, and I'm like, I'm the only dude in here with a t-shirt, hat, and some shorts on. Like,
Spotlight, spotlight.
right. And I'm walking in front of the entire campus accepting this award. And I'm like, well, shoot, as long as I'm doing it as me, 'cause this is how I show up any other day. So I guess it's what they're gonna get. But um, it's the end of the week. I'm kind of just powering down and
Mhm,
being more reflective. But as crazy as it was, it's been a good and productive week. How about y'all?
mhm. Yeah, I
Well,
mean, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Go
no, you
ahead.
got you got you got it first. No, finish. You
No,
jump
I was
right
just
into
gonna
the
say,
point.
I'm starting, another school year at my school. We're greeting some of our young Black men, and
Yep.
I'm gonna try to get some of the fathers involved in some of the projects that we're gonna do this year. I'm working at the elementary level, but in my mind, like mental health needs to be serviced at all the levels, whether
Yeah.
you're young, you're a teenager, young adult, a little bit older. Like we all need some help and guidance at different stages of our lives. So, I'm excited to be working with the families that I'm serving this year. Mhm,
Awesome, awesome. My week has been mentally draining because I'm currently in the training program. I started was it last month, and I'll be
mhm,
in this training program till the end of first week in December. So just like information overload. Like
Hmm.
I get
mhm,
whenever I get back, But in all, one of the things that I decided to do, and I've been challenging the people that I also work with, or people that are also in the same training environment with me, is take care of yourself.
mhm,
Listen,
mhm,
at this stage of our lives, we don't need to pretend to be people we're not. When I'm tired, I'm tired.
I'm tired.
I'm not going to give my life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not going to give my life to please people, wanting to impress people. Just like you said, Kelvin, listen, be yourself, be your authentic self. That is all you need. If you
Mhm.
feel comfortable wearing your t-shirt, your, whatever to any event, if that is you, do you.
Mhm.
Reasons.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
again, you need to get to that point where you know what works for you and what is best for you and what is right for you.
Mm.
So it's been a good week. So really, yes, I'm just trying to do me and take some good time to relax, take care of my mind, take care of my health and all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right, and just to be completely transparent with y'all, if y'all hear like any like grumbling coming from my end, it's gonna be in my stomach because I am hungry. Like I'm just ready to eat this evening and just chill out. It's been a long day, but
Yeah.
we power through. We do what we do.
Yeah, for sure. So I like what you said, Dr. Akwe, because that kind of puts us into what we're actually talking about tonight in the first place, and that's what identity and self-worth is, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
Last week we kind of just did a crash course into like mental health 101, right? And I think a lot of times when we are talking about Black men and their mental health, a lot of times the topic is always like daunting, right? Because we always talk about how bad we need it, how important it is, what happens when we don't have it. But one thing that I've always tried to stress to people Black men that I even do therapy with is that you still found a lot of success being who you are without any help so
Hmm.
far, right? So what my job is to kind of help you see what another part of yourself looks like
Hmm.
when all of those things don't always have to be in your way, those barriers, that trauma, all those things. And so a lot of times when we're working with Black men, I think it's like their opportunity to look at themselves in a different light, right? Because even when we consider what therapy is, it's predominantly women. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
predominantly women that are the service provider. It's
Hmm.
predominantly women who come to therapy, or it's women putting their kids in therapy. Like it's a
Hmm.
very female dominated space, right? And
Hmm.
though there has been so much success and so much growth from it, even as a practitioner, as a Black man, it's still there is difficulties kind of maneuvering and finding your way in this field. And so
Hmm.
when we think about like how Black men come to us, right, and understanding what intersectionality is, and for those that don't know, it's just all of the things around you that impact you, from your
Hmm.
environment, your personal self, your personal interests, all of those things kind of shape us, right? We
Yep.
all three of us come from three different walks of life, but we still find some
Hmm.
commonalities, right? Because our intersections are relatively the same to a degree, right? And
Right.
so
Yep.
I think one thing that to really talk about to start off is like, why do us as Black men struggle with coming into therapy, right? Finding ourselves in a space of not necessarily being vulnerable, but just being transparent in the beginning, right? And kind of
Hmm.
adopting that as a part of our identity.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind for me is, my experience when I was getting into therapy, not as a therapist, not as, the counselor, but as a client.
Yeah.
I went through a situation a couple of years ago, and although my friends were, encouraging me, and even my family members were encouraging me to like to go get help. In my mind, I'm supposed to be a man. I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be tough. I'm not supposed to let, situations get to me. I just got to keep going. I gotta
Mm-hmm.
keep moving forward. I gotta, work on, just work, make that money, keep going. Not let, the small things get to me, be a man about it. I mean, how
Yeah.
often do we hear that phrase like man up,
Mm-hmm.
man up, man up, man up? So like for me, um, what really got me to actually pursue being a client instead of being the helper
Mm-hmm.
was just the idea of I need to do this for myself. I need to
Mm-hmm.
like prove that I can be strong, but in a different kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I really worked on was just redefining like what strength meant to me. Initially, strength for me meant not showing that I'm down, because that was this period of my life where I was down. And the hardest part of being down is like, like getting back up again. So I had to like humble myself and acknowledge that I was in a down place and that I did need help. But
Mhm.
once I was in a position to like receive that help and I actually like accepted the help that was given to me, that made all the difference in the world for me. So I think when we take a look at this idea of masculinity and what it means to be a black man who's supposed to be the provider, the person who doesn't really show a lot of emotions, the person who's supposed to like just like run into fearful situations with like, just like this headstrong personality. I think when we take a look at all of that, we also have to take a look at what happens if we don't identify what needs to happen in those moments where we do need somebody to talk to. If I'm
Mhm.
trying to like take care of it all on my own, I'm going to miss out on things that I could have received if I was in a place to receive it a little bit better.
Mm.
And for me, I think in my personal journey, I redefined like what strength meant. And I learned that strength means having the opportunity to be vulnerable, the opportunity to actually like get to know yourself and challenge yourself to pursue things that you never really considered or thought of before. What does it mean to be a person who's in touch with themselves? What does it mean to like really like value yourself and take a look at your own self-esteem and your self-worth? So I think when I learned about vulnerability in a new kind of way, it made me want to explore different areas of my life even more.
So, you know what I think is ironic about what you said? Two things come to mind, right?
Mhm.
Um, Even being a man who is in this field where, like I said last week, we're three men talking about emotions. Like that in itself is a crazy concept, right? But
Right, right.
even in a place where like the job or because I don't think a lot I think sometimes people don't understand that this is still a job, right?
Mhm,
Like,
mhm,
yeah, we're here, yeah, we're listening, but we still have like we went through training, we had to go through classes, we had to take tests, write papers, we had to do a lot of things. So a lot of what we do is not, yes, it's coming from the heart, but this is also a job, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
so I think it's funny that even in the space as being a black man who realizes the go-getter type of attitude that we have as men, that
mhm,
that's almost still being applied in a place that's like where it's almost discouraged.
mhm.
You see
Yeah,
what I'm saying? And
yeah,
so it's like even with that, like as a black man and being in a space like this, that's something I'm always mindful of. Like how can I tell the person I'm sitting across from to slow down and not this, but I'm taking every other client that steps in.
right. Exactly.
In the spirit of
Exactly.
talking about emotions and talking about,
Mhm,
your trauma and helping you, I'm still having this like go-getter like mindset, go-getter like
mhm.
attitude about
Yep.
it. Right? And I think the second thing that really touched me while you were talking was that like how often us as black men define what strength is, right?
Mhm,
And also, like, to be candid, there's so, like, black men, we fall along a long spectrum of people, right? And even
mhm,
when we're talking about, like you said, something about expressing ourselves, like, let's think about, like, the average guy, you know?
mhm.
It's funny how we're not willing to express ourselves in a lot of situations, but we're willing to listen to other people's expressions all the time, whether it be
Yeah,
music, whether it be acting, like all of those things is them expressing themselves in their own manner, right? But
right.
I just think it's so interesting how we struggle in the very area that we will go spend money to go listen to somebody else do
Mhm.
instead of I mean honestly sometimes taking that same pile of money, those resources or whatever, to invest that in ourselves to like figure out how do we need to express ourselves. So that's why
Mm.
I'm gonna let Dr. Akwe step in and see what he gotta say because I keep on.
It's so you're so amazing listening to both of you, and being a black person, I would say I really understand where you guys are coming from. We were raised in such an environment where our culture taught us what we go seek for help with weak people. So that's why, you always hear of the word man it up, man. Or it all depends on, I've heard people, suck it in. You're a man, stand. You can take this. Go, and if you do that. So there is that cultural part of it that we inherited from our ancestors. And there's also the peer part of it, being by the circle that we'll find ourselves in. So that also, with that being said, we end up in a survivor mood. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you don't seek for help, what do you do? We ended up building this survivor mindset. Survivor mindset or survivor mode is when you're doing just enough to go through the day. Your focus isn't to grow or dreaming. It's just how can I make it through today or tomorrow. Does that make sense? And that is why even we know we going through stuff. We're going through a lot with our mental health. We're going through financial stress. We're going through relationship stress. We will just keep pushing, and that has been our story as Black people. And that has been so far that has been one great challenge that I think the time has not come for us to break that circle. We need to break out of that circle. And that is why all three of us came together to say, okay, how can we educate our people to know that this is not a norm? This is not the way it should be. There is nothing wrong for you as a man, a Black man, to be responsible for yourself. Because again, going to seek for help is you being responsible for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Most definitely.
we have to break the circle. We have to break the circle. We have to now, listen, that was this, not seeking for help was what we were told those days, but now we have to seek for help because again, take a look at it. Do you see, there was a research I did at a point in time. Have you discovered that the rate of young men dying in our dispensation is so alarming? The rate at which you see people die, young men that are dying in their 20s. In those days, our men used to live longer. Literally, you see half of my grandfather died. My grandfather died at 110. My dad is 80. He's turning 87. He's still strong. I've seen people in their 90s, in their 100s, they're still driving themselves. And the question you keep on, what did they do differently in their days that we're not doing? Now you see young folks dying very, very young, prostate cancer, cardiac arrest, and all that stuff. But why? Why? So we need to break out of that so where we think we can suck it in. We're man enough.
Yeah.
We need to get our survival mode to that point where we need to start taking care of ourselves. And here I also added, I said, we need to take a step towards thriving, not just surviving. What we've been doing is surviving. You wake up, you sleep, you're so tired, you're just like, no, but what can I do to make what I do, to enjoy and love what I do? Does that make sense? Thriving is more than just being okay. It means growing. It means feeling confident. It means living with a purpose and joy. That is what thriving means. One key to thriving is resilience. Your ability to bounce back from the challenges without losing yourself, your sense of self. Most of us, we've lost ourselves in the process of surviving. We've lost our dignity. We start doing stuff we're not supposed to do. Am I right? Because you just want to look at the people. A lot of the young men today that are doing drugs. They're doing it just to survive. Am I right? Because again, they just like, my mind can't take it again. And we just need to we need to be honest and we need to be true. to ourselves. And a few steps that can help me, a few things that I do that have been helping me literally to get out of that survivor mood to thriving mood is I learned to set boundaries. I learned to set boundaries. I literally will set healthy boundaries for myself. Listen, the second thing I do, nobody will teach you that in school, is I learned to love on me. Listen, nobody can love on you if you don't love on yourself. That is what I call compassion. The third thing I do to take care of myself is I celebrate my strength, not my weaknesses. Does that make sense? I would always celebrate my victory. I celebrate myself. And the last thing I do is I feed my mind with the truth. If you have this, there's no way you can succeed in life if you are always negative. Nobody can value you more than the value you place on yourself. So I will always feed my mind with positive things. Being positive. For those of us who go to church, there is a scripture we always read, say, as a man think in his heart, so he is. You cannot be bigger than what you think. If you see yourself as a loser, you will end up becoming a loser. If you see yourself as a failure, you end up becoming a failure. Again, failing and succeeding starts from your mental state. Does that make sense? So I will always feed my mind with truth. And again, back to your introduction, Kelvin, about what happened today, I would always stay true to myself. I would not be someone else. I would not envy any person. I would everybody's journey is slow, is different. I will walk my path, celebrate myself. So these are the things that I do to get out of that survivor state or survivor mindset to thriving and succeeding mindset. Over to you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about that survivor mindset, one of the things that come to mind for me is the idea that as men, our mindset is like to be that provider, to place some food on that table for all these other people that we're trying to serve. But we also have to realize that we have a seat at that table as well. We have to do some things to take care of ourselves. And when we think about what we need, it could be daunting, because if we're of the mindset of I need to do this for my wife, I need to do this for my kids, I need to do this for my mother, I need to do this for my cousins, but what's happening for me? Like, what am I doing for myself? So those coping skills can go a long way, but at the same time we have to be willing to accept the fact that we need help sometimes too. And we need to do some of those things for ourselves. As much energy as we pour into other people, we gotta save or devote some of that energy for ourselves as well.
I think one area, in my opinion, that not even just as Black men, just as a culture, but more specifically just towards men, is really changing the narrative of how we think about the things that we even talk about, right?
Yeah.
We definitely need to get the help necessary, right? I'm not going to dispute that. We definitely
Hmm.
need more men who are willing to talk, right? One thing that I share with any person that I work with is that, like, I love history, right? I'm a history nerd. That's my thing. There has never been a war that's been started because two people were actively communicating. Majority of the wars that are started is because somebody didn't like something that somebody said, they shut down and then they acted, right? And
Hmm.
when there's
Hmm.
communication that comes about, then that's when a lot of our treaties and how things get resolved, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think a lot of times, just as from man to man, like I think we get so hung up in what we're not getting.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Even when it comes to being a provider, even when it comes to being somebody who just takes cares of things, like yes, it's a hard job, right? It's not easy. Sometimes we do forget about ourselves in the process, right? But I think it's also like a double-edged sword in a way when we're like, these are the things as a man you want to work to, but these are also all the things you need to be worried about at the same time, right? So
Yeah.
for a black man who is trying to establish his identity, for somebody who maybe didn't have a father, for somebody who didn't have this or that, then for them it's like, well, what am I supposed to look up to? Because when we do talk about subjects and topics that were involve black men, it's always like, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do that. And all of those things are true, but it's like, I think a lot of times changing the narrative of how we
Hmm.
talk about these things, like why is it good for black men to be providers, right? So that way we have more strong black households in our communities. Why is it good
Yeah.
for black men to seek therapy? Because when two black men get together, when three black men get together, things happen, right?
Hmm.
And so I think a lot of times where us as black men get kind of wrapped up into our own self and we start kind of looking at ourselves as being like these hurt, damaged individuals to an extent, yes, that is true, right? Depending on
Hmm.
what everybody has been through. But there's
Hmm.
another degree where, or another side of this, where we have to consider that like us as black men, we are all very unique in our own very different ways, right? What I might
Yeah.
consider hurt, what you might consider hurt, might not be the same thing, right? But
Right.
how can we communicate on the same level, right? Or even if we're not communicating on the same level, what role can I play for this other person so that way they can come up, right? Not
Hmm.
necessarily that this person is bringing me down, but I think when we drive home the narrative of like what we're not getting, what we're not receiving, which things that we do need to have and things that we need to actively practice more, I really think that is how we start falling into the toxic masculinity trap, right? Where
Hmm.
I'm just gonna take care of myself. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. I'm going to um just worry about me and mines and all this other stuff. And then that's how we start getting a lot of those, personas. So I think even how we talk about it and the narrative that we have around it and celebrating what black men can be, right? Our identity
Hmm.
is much more than the trauma we've experienced, right?
Yeah.
Much more than the hurt little boy um from when we were 9 or 10. Like we grown men, right? Even with
Hmm.
teenagers, those are teenagers, right?
Hmm.
So I think a lot of times we get so hung up on like what we haven't experienced, what the hardships of it that it's hard to convince somebody that having a family is a beautiful thing when it's like being a provider is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is hard,
Hmm.
right? These are things that for a lot of men they strive to be, but the conversation we have around it is always sounds difficult. And which
Hmm.
is why I think it leads into that toxic masculinity where people are not having, it's like the perception is very limited, right? They're looking through
Hmm.
it's very tunnel vision. I need to do this,
Hmm.
I need to take care of myself. I don't need nobody to hurt me. That's also survival mode. It's not always about the corner that you're backed into. Sometimes it's the corner that you put yourself in because you're
Hmm.
thinking that everything that I'm doing and I'm is not being seen. But a lot of times you just need to communicate to the people that you're around that like maybe acknowledgement is good for me. Maybe
Yeah.
validation is good for me. And if I'm not getting it here, maybe
Hmm.
then I create boundaries, distance myself for whatever that may look like, and find a community of people that want to do that. But I do think that oftentimes we get so hung up on just like the hardships, which are there and they're valid. But like the point of anything is to help people and see people progress, right? But I
Hmm.
think when we don't, we get really wrapped up into the whole toxic masculinity thing. When
Hmm.
really, I mean, and I'm curious as to what y'all think, but as far as what I think about it, it's like the toxic masculinity trait is just like that safety blanket where I can keep everybody away. I can keep the
Hmm.
people away from hurting me. Um, and I practice it so much so where now it just becomes my daily existence. This is the conversation that I'm having. These are the things that I'm doing. I'm engaging in all of these different vices, whether it be women, money, alcohol, drug, whatever that case may be, as a way to cope. Because realistically, how I am, I'm not even satisfied with, but this is just a means of protection.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, when we think about toxic masculinity, something else that I was thinking about as you were talking, Calvin, is just the idea that when I am working so hard to be, the best provider that I can, as a way to escape the idea that I need to work on something internally, it could be a distraction from me.
Okay.
If I'm choosing to work on everything else besides an internal struggle that I'm facing, then I'm using all this external stuff to escape from the thing that I really need to deal with internally. And I think, as Black men or just men in general, we need to recognize the fact that if we have baggage that we're carrying, it's just going to make just living, surviving, working like even much harder. What joy, what pleasure, what sense of accomplishment am I going to get out of life if I'm struggling in the process of doing all this stuff? If I'm carrying all this stuff around that needs to be dealt with, but I'm choosing not to deal with it because I'm distracting myself doing all this other stuff, and I'm not accomplishing or working on what I need to work on internally, then it's going to make life even harder. I think when we take a look at all the things that we as men do, we're providers. We take care of our wives, our kids, our families. We're doing all this stuff, but again, if we're not taking care of of ourselves internally, then it just makes it that much harder.
Hmm. So, I guess what my question would be for the both of you guys is,
Uh,
what was that?
you go ahead. I'm
Um,
listening.
what my question would be for the both of you guys is that maybe either personally or professionally, right?
Hmm.
What is baggage that we feel as though most Black men carry as they are maneuvering and navigating life, right? And how does that even show up? Because a lot of times, like I said, by the time they get to us, maybe they are already married with kids, have a beautiful family, or even maybe they're just individuals, right? And it's
Hmm.
like, I've worked with Black men who are far along in their career. I've worked with Black
Hmm.
men who were at the top of their career, and then they got
Hmm.
laid off, right?
Hmm.
But I've
Hmm.
also worked with Black men who are in the process of just figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
So like how do we or what type of baggage when you say that do you feel as though either, us as a community of men or specifically Black men bring into situations that maybe we're not exploring enough of?
One thing that comes to mind is is guilt. Maybe I have in my mind how I should be, as the man of the house, but because I'm not measuring up to these expectations, and sometimes they may even be unrealistic expectations, then I'm dealing with the guilt and the shame of not living up to what I envision I should be as a person. And that could be traumatizing, because even though I'm working so hard, I'm still not getting there for some reason. I'm still not happy. I'm still not the person that I see myself as being. So that's one thing. Another thing is, with some of the men that I've worked with, they've dealt with like other forms of trauma that they've experienced, as kids, for example. And because that wasn't dealt with in an effective kind of way, instead, it was dealt with in a way where like I'm escaping this. I don't want to talk about this. Um, it just changes like their outlook on life. It changes their outlook on how they relate to other people, how they see other people, how they work with people in authority positions.
Hmm.
So it really like casts like a really dark shadow on the bright light of life that you can live if you are just dealing with things and in an escapist point of view, or like a hurt mentality.
Hmm. What about you, Doctor?
So for me, again, it all goes back to trying to be people we're not. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And the very moment we start, start pretending to be someone else, are also taking on responsibilities that is not ours. That can also be a problem. Again, when the weight of these responsibilities becomes too much, what happens? Then you start sinking. And when you start sinking, again, what would happen? Everybody around you that you were trying to please will just run away from you, and they would leave you to just struggle yourself. I always tell people, when you succeed, you have a lot of friends. But when you're going through challenges, how many friends will stand by you? Very few.
Mm.
So again, this leads us to that identity, living your life the way God has called you to live. And, I've been listening to both of you. One of the things I think we need to go back again and really establish is what our ancestors did. Even while they were going through the hardship of slavery, there were a couple of things that they never toyed with. They had faith in a creator, or they had faith in God. Look at the song, the what's it called, the Black Hymns. If you let me pull it up. We always sing this song every Black History Month, and I don't understand. I hope people understand how the song was written. Lift every voice and sing. If you read the lyrics of that song, even while they were going through the hell of that, they had faith. Our faith would be our greatest anchor to redefining our identity. Most of our Black men today, we've lost our identity for real. Now, if you can hold on to something, it could be God Almighty, it could be Allah, it could be whatever you name it, that helps you stay focused. And that would help you because, again, for instance, I, as a Christian, my identity is in God through Christ, his son. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I know what God has called me to do. I know the life God has called me to live. I don't need anyone to validate me because I know I'm fearfully and wonderfully made by God. That is my identity. And no matter what I go through, my faith has always been my strength. Number three is, why are we living? A lot of us, we've lost relevance of our purpose, the purpose why you are here. Why do you do what you're doing? I've seen people go buy cars because they want to impress people. And at the end of the day, they would only drive the vehicle for 2 or 3 months, it get repossessed. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I've seen people go buy designer clothes when they're struggling. They know they can't afford to live the lifestyle, but they just want to please people. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you living? Even what I do, what you do, what we do as Black clinicians, are we just doing it because of the money, or we doing it because this is a call? So for me, we need to go back to our faith that would help define our identities, and we also need to know why we're living. These were the 3 things that our ancestors that went through slavery did that kept them going, even in the face of adversity, in the face of torture, in the face of, they stood because of these 3 things. So I would really encourage us as Black people, let's go back again to the drawing board. Then we will start living. Yeah.
I like that.
My identity is more than the money that I make. It's more than the job I have. It's more than the situation I'm in. And it's also more than what other people see me as and who they think I am. My identity is, well, for me, it's Ricky. And like, I'm still defining who I am and who I am going to aspire to be as I continue to live my life on this earth. So I think, you bring up, a couple of great points with that. So I appreciate you, adding that to the conversation.
Thank you so much.
I think one thing that I really got from what both of you guys are saying is that when it comes down to toxic masculinity, just from how it sounds, a lot of it is really action based, right? So it's like having faith means that you're practicing something that will instill that level of faith in you, right? And so even when we talk about what toxic masculinity is, especially even in the process of building our own identity, I think it's important to look at what we're physically and actively doing in those forms, right? Because those actions is what ingrains in us the belief of whatever it is. So if I'm not working towards anything and I find myself just watching TV and eating food all day, the natural thing I'm going to say about myself is that I'm lazy, is that I'm unmotivated
Mhm.
because I can acknowledge that I'm not doing something productive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for a lot of us, especially as Black men, we have to find something, just honestly, something to believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always, to some extent, measure a man by what his belief is. It doesn't have to necessarily be but what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But as men, we thrive off direction and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We
Mhm.
and when we're under the right leadership, we will find success, somebody to pour into us. And I think a lot of that is what we as Black men are missing is
Mm-hmm.
finding somebody who's willing to pour into us something that's not toxic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think one thing that I've learned about myself transparently um is that I really struggled with accountability at one point in time, right? I
Mm-hmm.
really struggled um, being consistent with the relationships that were keeping me accountable to do the right thing. So for me, it maybe was like, hey, did I go work out today? For me, because
Mm-hmm.
everything that I've done has always been so individualized. I'm like, well, I'm gonna do it when I feel like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Realizing that the person that's trying to get me to do it is trying to show me that they care about me. But the
Mm-hmm.
more that I pull away, not only am I developing a lot of those toxic traits, I'm also robbing myself of exploring what relationship and community looks like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think when it comes down to it, like when you think about what toxic masculinity is, I think one thing that keeps us as Black men, and this is in my own findings, right? This may not be
Yeah.
applicable to everybody, but
Mm-hmm.
it really does scare men away when you tell them to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
when you consider what
Mhm.
vulnerability means, just by definition, right? There is no man that would read that definition and agree that is what I need to be. Rarely not, right? Now, from a mental
Mm-hmm.
health concept, I really do believe that we restructured it, but the legit definition, and I'm paraphrasing, it means you're susceptible to harm by any side, by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm having to be vulnerable, if I'm just going based off definition, I don't know you. I don't know what you can say. And you're a therapist. You're trained to be good with your words.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always try to express to anybody that I'm working with, but even with men, that like you don't always have to be vulnerable to find success, right?
Mm-hmm.
There should be an area where you do find security. There should be times and people that you know you can rely on for these things, which also does help you build that community, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of where we can kind of shape or change our thinking when it comes to what toxic masculinity is and even how we present ourselves as men is not always come from a place of that vulnerability, because when you're vulnerable, you're at the bottom. When a man
Yeah.
feels like he's at the bottom, it's like, well, how am I gonna work and claw my way up? It's like, no.
Yeah.
If I'm in the process of meeting you where you need to be met, I need to. That's why we practice the strength perspective. In
Yep.
order for you to buy into this, I have to show you your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot identify your strengths if you're quote unquote coming from a place of vulnerability, right?
Right.
Which in my opinion is why we need to have and find something to believe in. So that way that is the place where we can, I mean, for me it is being a Christian, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel as though when I am in that place and I am practicing what I'm practicing, I am vulnerable because I do believe that is the only entity, God is the only entity that can take care of me in all of those ways. But if I'm
Amen.
in a day-to-day interaction, I have to be aware that this is a person that I'm talking to. They may say something unintentionally that might hurt a little bit. It might sting a little bit. I was being
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, but in my vulnerability now I'm using that in reverse because
Yeah.
now I'm ready to double down and tell it you know what you did to me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so I think
Yeah.
I think when we consider what men are looking for, even in spaces of developing their identity, coming from that place of strength and identifying like, hey, you've made it this far and
Mm-hmm.
you still got to me. there is much more things that you're not seeing about yourself that is there. And my job is to not only uncover those things, but let's figure out how to make it stronger. So that
Yeah.
way when we talk about those more sensitive areas, you're not having to feel vulnerable or exposed to harm because you already know these things about you, right?
Hmm.
And so when we kind of shape that and we look at that, then that's when we can really look at, well, how do we go from surviving to thriving? How do we develop our identity from that place of strength? Because I know when we talk about it a lot, even as therapists, like we want people to have that openness to us. We want
Yeah.
people to buy into what we're saying, right? It's kind of like being a salesman, to be
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be honest with you. Like I'm trying to tell you why you need this therapy, and you
Yeah.
not listening to what I got or what I'm trying to tell you. So now I'm
Hmm.
like, well, dang, what do I need to do? Me telling him to be sensitive or emotional or whatever in that moment, but he's
Hmm.
not listening to me.
Right. 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 Right.
But let's say if I can tell you, or we
So
can.
I 100%, I 100, yeah. Sorry, I wanted
Oh,
to add this. I 100% agree. There was a statement you made where you think you said something that has to do with, everyone goes through stress, or everyone goes through challenges. So I
Mhm.
just want to encourage everyone that is watching or listening to this podcast. You are more than your past.
Yeah.
No one has the right to judge you.
We hanging on his every word right now.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, he left me on a cliffhanger. I had a bar.
Oh man, he was going somewhere with it. He just left. He gone.
He
He
probably
gone.
had a bar. But
He'll be back though. He'll be back.
but knowing yourself is important, right? And
Hmm.
we can talk about all these things and all these concepts and toxic masculinity and how that impacts us, but it's like we still live in a real world, right?
Right. Right.
Where race plays a big part, our
Mm,
history
yeah.
plays a big part. I
Hmm.
always say there is nothing new under the sun, right?
Right.
Just because we're not experiencing hardcore Jim Crow anymore, it doesn't mean that those things aren't still there, right?
Hmm.
And because
Yep.
those things are still there and they're still active, Dr. Aqua, you were saying like knowing yourself and being confident in yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, we talk about all these things, but we're still black men in this world having to operate and maneuver. All of this, like, I ain't trying to be funny, but kumbaya is great. But
You're right.
like, how do we maneuver and navigate taking all of this into the real world where it might not be celebrated um as often or at all once
Right.
we're out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're in an environment where you're hearing the exact opposite of the kumbaya and like let's come together and let's talk about our feelings and let's talk about being vulnerable and let's talk about how we can heal these past hurts and stuff. If we're in an environment where the mindset is keep pushing, don't look back, keep going forward. It could be hard to change your narrative, especially if this is something that you've been hearing for a big chunk of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important to recognize the fact that when when you are trying to be like the better version of yourself, whatever that means to you, you have to accept the fact that that means I have to do more than what I've been doing. I
Mm-hmm.
have to like learn some new things. The definition of insanity, like we've all heard the phrase before. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So if
Oh.
I'm just working and I'm just working and I'm just working, and this working ain't getting me to where I want to be, then that means I need to change the work that I'm doing,
Mm.
or at least change the focus of that work as well.
Mm-hmm. But
So I
that
like what you said
that
about I like what you said about Christianity because when we think about God, I'm a Christian as well, and when we think about God, we're thinking of Him as this being that's above me that I'm using to guide my life. So that means I have to step outside of myself,
I have to
learn
let
some
everything
new things outside of myself, and
out.
apply those new things to change my life.
Which has to come from a place of vulnerability because you have to literally say, I do not know.
Exactly.
In
Yes.
every area of my life, I really do not know what I'm doing, right? Um,
Right.
it's funny you said
Mhm.
that made me think about this. I did a training with my team at work the other day, right? And we was talking about like trauma, and we were specifically talking about this one specific student, and we was talking about like accountability and how hard that is because I work in private day, meaning secondary or special education. So once they move out of if they can't succeed in the public school, then they
Mm-hmm.
come where I work.
Mm-hmm.
So we as I'm going through the training, I'm letting people know like, hey, it's a lot of people who who are misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, or have never received any services at all. And so we have to understand that even as us as black men, we've lived an entire life up until this point, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, even 50, 60 years of life has gone by. And now I'm having to start my healing journey, if you will, at this particular moment.
Mm.
Having to debunk. I'm 20.
Mm.
I'm 27 years old. I'm gonna be honest with you. I won't thought about 60 years ago.
Nope.
So,
Nope.
like I'm having to debunk everything that you ever learned, everything that,
That's
and
been ingrained.
that's been ingrained in you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so
Mm-hmm.
even in that training, somebody had asked me like, "Well, how do you do it?" And I'm like, honestly, you have to control the controllables. Even as black men on a day to day, we have to control the controllables. Anything outside of what I have my hands directly on is outside of my control. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I establish and build my self-esteem and build my identity? I focus and I keep my attention on the things that I know I'm doing. How
Mm-hmm.
they portray to the outside world is outside of
Yep.
my control. And if it was not in my intention to do that, how can I change what I did to show what I'm trying to do? Right?
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I think the more that we ingrain that and we show that effort, not just for what we want other people to see, but to show that we can do it, right? I can show you that I'm good with my words and I'm expressive and I'm emotionally intelligent and I'm aware and I don't play on my past traumas. I can show that because I'm actively doing it. I might not show it the best way, but that's
Mm-hmm.
why I rely on the trusted people around me to provide me with good criticism, right? Like maybe you
Yeah.
said that better. It might hurt in a moment, but it's like maybe you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Because how
Yep.
we learn how to communicate is
So,
based on the body language and the communication from others. So when I
Yep.
think about like when we go from thriving, from surviving to thriving, I think it's about the understanding that failure is inevitable, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
failure is not a means to an end. It's an opportunity to just be better,
Yeah.
to take advantage of those other opportunities.
Yeah. And I like everything that you said, Calvin, and it makes me think about the strengths that you talked about and like being vulnerable. And I love how the work that you do with your clients, like you capitalize on their strengths. I think that's a big part of it, because sometimes when people come to therapy, they need to hear that you've done a great job so far.
Mhm,
Like the strengths that you've employed, they're there. They got you to where you are right now. But now, how do we get to that next level?
mhm,
And in order for that next level to even be like in the foresight, we have to accept that we are going to be a work in progress. We're going to accept, some new strategies that we can employ in our life to get us there. And we can even like redefine what our goals are. Because the person that I was when I was 27, because I'm 35 now,
mhm.
just a couple of years older than you, man, just a couple of years older than you. But
It's
the
not on.
27-year-old Ricky was going through different things. 35-year-old Ricky, like, I got new things on the horizon that I'm jumping into. I'm just gonna leave it like that. But
so
like it comes with just
that is
accepting me for who I am right now,
Yeah,
taking a look at where I want to be, and being open to the feedback along the way. I think
absolutely.
one of the biggest things that we struggle with as men is just that hard-headed mentality. I got it. I got it figured out. And if I don't have it figured out, I'm gonna figure it out my way. But sometimes that don't get you anywhere.
Sometimes you need to see your way not working, bro.
Yeah,
Respectfully,
bro. Yeah, bro.
is not working. I think one thing I like,
yeah.
last thing I
I,
like to
I,
add is
I,
how important it is. One thing that I always tell anybody that I work with is like when we're ending the session, I always just say I'm proud of you.
Yep.
Simply put. And they'd be like, for what? And I'm like, you came to therapy today and you talked
Showed
about
up.
your emotions and you learned something. I'm proud of you. My job.
Yep.
I did my job today. What
Yep.
you got, Dr. Aqua?
Uh, what I have to say is this: see, this is where we need to stand to support one another, learning
Mhm.
from each other's failures and learning from each other's experiences and our successes. When I was in my 20s, I thought I was smart. I met people who are smarter than myself. When I was in my 30s, it felt different. Now in my 40s, almost like very soon we'll clock 50, I'm seeing life differently. The older you get in life, your output in life is different. But one thing that
Good.
I always again, one thing that I've said to myself is this: I will celebrate my successes and learn from my past mistakes, even current mistakes, because again, we would always make mistakes, am I right? And also receive constructive and honest feedback as opportunity to grow. But last thing from me before we end tonight's podcast is I will keep striving, and I also want to encourage everyone keep striving because that
Mhm.
is what God is calling us to do as men. Keep striving. It's too late to give up now. Let's keep moving. Let's keep striving towards success. Let's keep striving towards taking care of ourselves because no other person will do that for you and I. Thank you.
Mhm.
Appreciate you, Dr. Aqua. Yeah,
Yeah, Dr. Awkward.
kind of hard following of that one. um, I think my biggest takeaway from all of this is that, you know, us as black men, our identity is much more than the things that we have been through in the negative way. Um, I think it's also much more than how we think about ourselves in a positive way too. I think we can always up the score. If you ask me, I'm like, we can do it better, you know? Um,
Hmm.
but I would definitely say that how we think about the things that are troubling us, once we kind of frame our mind how we can use this to benefit us and strengthen us, even if it's just how we learn from a situation, um,
Mhm.
can shape our identity in ways that we never
Mm.
imagined. If I know I can, yeah, I know I can get myself out of a situation, but I know how to do it smarter every time
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
show
Mhm.
my resilience does not always have to be my greatest characteristic. Sometimes it can be my intelligence. Sometimes it can be um my initiative to get things done by the use of everything around me. So I would just tell any black man that's watching this or anybody that's watching is that your identity is a little bit more multifaceted than what we're given credit for. And for us as black,
Mhm.
I think that's just something we could stand to explore a little bit more than what we do.
Yeah. Oh man, y'all just keep up in the ante right now.
I
That
told you,
bar is just
yeah,
getting
I
up.
told you I'm gonna run it up. I'm gonna run
All
it
right.
up.
Let me take a shot at it. So, some of the takeaways that I had from episode two, where we discussed identity and self-worth, we have to appreciate the journey that we're on. When we think about all the things that we've been through, yes, they've definitely like shaped our lives. They've shaped our view on a lot of different things. And as we continue to enjoy the process, even if we're not enjoying it, we have to recognize that life is a process. It's a process of self-discovery. It's a journey of self-discovery. So when we think about, just life in general and thinking about, what it means to be a man and to be a conqueror, to be a provider, or whatever comes to your mind when you think about what it means to be a man, we have to recognize that we're always going to be a work in progress.
Hmm.
The person I am today is better than I was yesterday, and I'm happy as good as I will be tomorrow. I'm cutting out the toxic stuff. I'm cutting out the stuff that's slowing me down, the stuff that's holding me back, the stuff that's keeping me from moving forward. there may be times where I do need to like slow down and evaluate, but at the end of the day, like I want to see what's going to get me to that next level, whatever that level is, and whatever that goal is. So as I'm discovering myself and what my identity means to me and what my self-worth actually is, I'm taking the time to recognize that I'm already great, but I want to be greater. And I can define
Amen.
whatever that means to me. So great job this evening, guys. I felt like we had a really productive conversation. And to our viewers out there, we definitely appreciate you guys joining us for episode 2 of our podcast, The Mind of a Brother. We look forward to seeing you guys next time. But until then, stay blessed by the best and peace to you.
Keep thriving. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, guys.